Welcome, everyone. Welcome in. We're just going to wait a few more minutes here to let everyone sort of file in. Thank you for joining us. Okay, great. And I am going to go ahead and get started because we've got so much to cover. So thanks again for joining us here. Welcome to the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program's webinar covering food waste prevention in schools and SB 1383 edible food recovery compliance for local education agencies. I'm Kira Lowe. I'm the program manager of the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program. The program is charged with county-wide implementation of the new SB 1383 food recovery regulations on behalf of all of the cities in Santa Clara County. So this includes identifying and providing education and outreach to all regulated entities, collecting reporting and monitoring compliance. So this also includes conducting inspections. So a brief overview or a few notes to get started. If we don't have, during the presentation, please feel free to throw any questions that you have into the Q&A. We'll try to do our best to answer them at the end. If we don't have time to get to all of your questions, we will follow up with you after the presentation to ensure that your questions answered. A short survey will pop up when you exit the webinar. We would really appreciate if you would take just a couple of minutes to complete this survey. It's just a few questions, and that feedback is greatly appreciated. And then lastly, we really want to hear from you. We've compiled best practices from research organizations and schools across the country. That said, our expertise is in food waste reduction, not schools, and you are the school's experts. So if there are prevention tips, food waste prevention tips that we don't mention in the webinar that you're using and that you think work well, please throw them in the chat and we'll do our best to share them with everyone as well. So during the webinar, we're going to highlight best practices and tips for preventing food waste and reducing your surplus food. Many of these strategies may be familiar to you, and you may already be implementing some of them at your school sites. Of course, we're aware that you're contending with many state and federal laws, in addition to contracts and other site-specific constraints. So knowing that, we're aware that not all of the information in this presentation will be relevant or practicable for everyone here. That said, we are hoping that you'll walk away with at least a couple of strategies that you could consider implementing at your sites. On that note, we're really grateful to have staff from 2 local school districts who will share their own expertise, experience, and insights in reducing food waste at their school sites. And then in the latter part of the webinar, we'll be reviewing SB 1383 edible food recovery requirements, as well as going over how to go about setting up a food donation program through which you can donate your surplus food in compliance with these requirements. So I want to start by briefly putting this issue into context. I'm sure you've heard the statistic that around 40% of food in the US goes to waste. So to put that sort of in the context of schools, the World Wildlife Fund did a study of 46 schools across the country and extrapolated the data they collected to estimate that nationally, food waste in schools amounts to approximately 530,000 tons per year. So this is equivalent to about $9.7 million a day or $1.7 billion a year. And one important note is these statistics don't include milk waste, which they calculated separately, and is also one of the most commonly wasted items in schools. On an individual student level, the study found an average of just under 40 pounds of food waste and 29 cartons of milk waste per student per year. That gives just a little bit of background there. Of course, the best strategy for dealing with food waste is to prevent it in the first place. As you can see here, prevention is the most preferred strategy by the EPA when it comes to food waste reduction. Reducing the amount of surplus food you generate is the best way to minimize the environmental impact of food operations, because you're preserving the resources like like water and fuel that go into producing and transporting that food. Besides environmental, there are additional potential benefits that prevention strategies can offer to your operations. For example, prevention strategies can help to ensure that students are getting the nutrients they need. For instance, tracking surplus or unwanted food can allow for menu improvements that ensure that students are eating more. And implementing strategies like share tables also help to ensure that students are getting that food that they need. We have heard from a number of local districts that reducing their food waste has helped to increase staff morale. Food service staff obviously don't enjoy seeing food that they've prepared going to waste, and facility staff, we've heard, also appreciate the lighter loads when they aren't hauling excessive amounts of food after each meal service. And then there are potential cost savings associated with these prevention strategies. For instance, reduced food waste costs, reduced waste hauling costs can happen with reduced food waste. And we've also heard about workers' comp savings as well. So identifying the types of food that are most commonly wasted and where this waste occurs is both a good place to start thinking about food waste reduction and is also one of the best ongoing food waste prevention strategies. You can't manage what you don't measure. So there are a number of ways to do this. The simplest is to monitor your production records to understand what items you have in surplus each day and adjust accordingly. I'm sure the majority, if not all of you, are already doing this. You can also use regular visual waste audits. These are an effective and relatively easy way to understand what students are wasting or not selecting in the first place. And this can be as simple as asking your kitchen manager or lead to observe, to take notes, or even take photos. You can also do a more involved waste audit. There are many guides on how to do this, including one from the EPA, which we'll put in the chat. This method does take more time and resources, but is also the most accurate way to fully understand what foods are being wasted by students and staff and why. Of course, when implementing any new program or strategy, it's really important to get your staff on board. So for food waste reduction, you might start by engaging your food service and kitchen staff, highlighting the benefits of any new strategies you're implementing. Again, we've heard that in many cases, prevention efforts are welcomed by staff who don't want to see food go to waste, and of course care deeply about ensuring that students are getting the food and nutrition they need. Scheduling regular check-ins and encouraging feedback from staff can help to identify and troubleshoot any problems early on, as well as to crowdsource and get new ideas about how to reduce food waste from the folks who are working in day-to-day operations. Regular staff training is a great way to reduce waste as well. A few strategies to consider including making sure that all food items are placed in proper storage areas, proper containers, and at the optimum temperature. Also ensuring that food is properly labeled and categorized and that first in, first out systems are always employed. And then date labeling. Date labels are confusing and lead to a lot of waste across the food system. So training staff on proper food handling when it comes to date labels can help to avoid unnecessary discarding of food based on sort of a misinterpretation of these labels. So one of the best ways to reduce what we call post-consumer food waste, so that's food waste that's already been put on the students' plates, are through share tables. So as most of you already know, share tables are tables or carts where students can drop off certain unwanted food and beverage items and pick up items that other students have left. Share tables are allowed and supported by both the CDE and USDA to reduce food waste and to ensure that students are getting the nutrition they need. We wanted to share an excerpt from this 2018 CDE bulletin that references the relevant sections on share tables in Cal Code. Of course, as with all food served, share tables must follow local environmental health, food safety requirements. We are currently working with the Environmental Health Department to put together a guide specifically on food safety requirements for share tables and school food donations. So more to come on that soon. So our next speaker will provide an overview of their share table program, but I first wanted to highlight just a few best practices. I know that there are many more than this, and we'd love to hear your favorites in the chat if you're willing to share them. Of course, clear signage is really important to ensure that these systems run smoothly. Signage should make the share table clearly recognizable to students, as well as identify which items are allowed and where they go on the share table, as well as including a statement that food brought from home isn't allowed. Providing separate containers for cold, hot, and shelf-stable items. This can help to ensure that temperatures are kept in the right zone for items such as milk, as well as helping students to select the food they want because of that organization, and can also help to make cleanup and handling of leftovers a bit easier. For leftover share table items, we recommend first reusing allowable items in future meals. But donation is also a good second option for, again, those allowable items if you're not able to reuse or reserve them for whatever reason. If you're hesitant about share tables or have had negative experiences in the past, or if you still need buy-in from your school community, we recommend piloting it first. Try it at one or a couple of school sites to start with. This can help you to work out the kinks and get sort of the school community and other staff on board. Remember to reach out to environmental health before implementing any new share table programs. And then we wanted to highlight that there are a lot of great share table resources and videos and guides available online. Stop Waste in particular has some great resources to generate excitement with students around share tables, and they also have some customizable template signage that you can use. I do want to note that the environmental health requirements do differ between Alameda County and Santa Clara County, so not everything in those videos will be directly relevant to your schools, but they are a good place to start if you're looking for some of that content. So it's my pleasure to introduce Alane Webb. Alane is the food service manager in the Child Nutrition Services Department at Franklin McKinley School District. Alane was gracious enough to share some of the food waste prevention measures that she's using to reduce waste at their school sites. So here's Alane.
Hello, my name is Alane Webb, and I am the food service manager here at Franklin McKinley School District. Prior to coming to Franklin McKinley School District as the food service manager, I worked for Sodexo company. I worked for 25 years with Sodexo. After 25 years with Sodexo, I decided to take the position here at Franklin McKinley School District. And I've been in this position for the last year. I have been at the school district going on 21 years now. So it was a great transition going from Sodexo into transition into my new position as the food service manager, and knowing the staff and training the staff and working with the staff was an easy transition coming on to Franklin McKinley School District. Today, I'd just like to talk a little bit about SB 1383. Some of the fun things that we're doing here at Franklin McKinley School District is we're going back to where we were prior to this becoming law. We have implemented what we call share tables here at the school district, which we had probably about 10 years ago. What we found in the past was kids were coming through the lines, and they were just coming through the lines, grabbing their food and throwing it in the garbage can. So we would monitor that. We would have meetings with our custodial staff to see, how much food was being wasted. The great thing is we gave a lot of communication. There was a lot of communication to the teachers, to the principals, to all the stakeholders. We piloted at 2 of our schools. And once we did that with the 2 schools, we saw that it was a success. After meeting and taking all the notes and from our staff and from our custodial staff. We went ahead and implemented it all through all of our 15 sites here, as well as 2 charter schools that we have as well. After implementing those, we went back to the table and we met with the custodial staff and found out that the waste is less than what we've done in the past. Kids know where to go for their, if there's leftover entrees, it's in a red bin. If there's leftover fruits and vegetables, it's in a green bin. If there's any milk left over, it's left in a white bin with ice. And we worked through the health department to implement this last year. We worked with the health department last school year to implement it for this school year. So we started it on August 7th. And it's been a huge success, for our school district. Like I said, I can't say enough, our goal is to feed each and every child. And what we found is that these children are taking food, if we can only have one entree, as everyone knows, one entree, breakfast, supper, lunch, and snacks. Some of our kids, this is the only meal that they get. So having these shared tables have been amazing for the kids to participate if they want another snack or if they want another entree or even a piece of fruit. We definitely encourage them to go to the salad bar and get as much fruits and vegetables as they like. However, a lot of them love the extra entree. So what we found is that our waste is low, our counts are low as far as, tossing any food out. We find that the kids are on board with it. They'll bring friends in. When I visit the schools, they'll bring friends in and say, if they're standing in line, they want another, asking our leads if they can have another thing. And then one of their friends will just say, hey, there's a share table out there. So the share table, when the kids, know about the share table, they tell one friend, and it's kind of like a domino effect. The process for us was very, very easy. You definitely need to get in touch with your health department. You have to have the paperwork filled out. If the health department comes in, they'll see you have to have that posted on the walls, and then the health department will know that that food out there has been permitted to be out there. The kids can go ahead and take it as they please. We ensure that it's not in the 4-hour danger zone. So we make sure if there's anything that's been sitting out there too long, we record it and then we toss it. Half the time we don't have to toss any food. If anything we're taking back is probably the milk. Even the fruits, the kids are taking the fruits. If we do find fruit in there, fruits are veggies. A lot of our veggies are prepackaged, but say for instance, an apple, or a pear or something like that, we just take it back and we wash it and then we can reuse it. Same with the milk. We just make sure we wash it off because, we know the kids have touched it and everything, but very far and few in between, we will find that there's any entrees that are left over. Our biggest ones that we know the kids love the corn dogs. They love, pizza. They like hot dogs, hamburgers. So we just try to implement as much as we can, to ensure that we're giving them what they like. We're giving them what, they want to see on the menu. We have student focus group meetings with our schools. We do that 4 times a year, so we're doing them quarterly, and we want the kids to understand that they are being heard. We have a huge population of Vietnamese and Hispanic students here, so we try to cater to what the students are eating at home. For instance, we've implemented pozole. Pozole is a huge hit. As a matter of fact, we just had it on our menu last week. We get feedback from our staff about the pozole. We're going to be doing a pho dish here. The kids are going to be, we just want them to know that we hear them, we're listening to them, we do surveys. It's just very, very important because we as the leaders here at the school district and so on and so forth, we also the kids need to understand, the students need to understand that they are our customers. And we want to ensure that we're doing everything that we can in our power to make sure that they understand that they are truly being heard. And we've seen, I've been here a long time, and I've seen it go from, we all know that we have declining enrollment. We started off when I was here 20 years ago, we started off with about 11,000 kids, and we're going down to we're about 5,700 kids right now. However, reading the production records, we have to have the students, we have to have our staff, work off a production record. So they understand that we're not producing too many meals. When they do that, we're working off of that. It helps them, guide them through whatever they're going to be serving the next time, because we run a 2-week menu cycle. So like I said earlier, we know what the kids like. So our bins are very, very, like I said, far and few in between that they are full at the end of the day. We're working with, we have a choral staff here that we work with, and they shared with me because we definitely, we have partners, so we definitely make sure that we're all engaged and we're on the same page with one another in the vision that we have going forward. So they know about SB 1383. So they're monitoring as well. I met with a choral director last week, and he just told me that we had to increase our numbers because the kids are really eating the food. They really, really like the food. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the meetings with the students. It's very, very important that we meet with our students. We have monthly meetings with our staff to ensure that menu is what the students like. So having said that, I think I was saying earlier, it's an easy process. It can be done. We have cafeterias that have 2 individuals that run the cafeteria, and they get it done. We have enrollment. We have one school has about 600 enrolled, and we have 3 staff members in that kitchen. So it kind of works out. But as we see it's getting bigger and bigger. It's like, as far as, the kids, going to the shared tables. I'm working on my 24-25 plan now. We're going to re-implement having student helpers. I think having student helpers is a huge asset to our department. I think it works. I think it gives the students culinary, a little bit about the food industry. When we had it years ago, we would talk to the kids, ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they say they want to be a chef. They like working in the kitchen, whether that's wiping down the baskets or, our reusable baskets, or giving out, something like a code item to their friends and everything, serving food to them. If you have not had the opportunity to implement those share tables, feel free to contact me. I'll be more than happy to have you come out and visit our sites or whatever. We can take a look at it. We can walk it. I'd be more than happy to help you with it. But I think share tables are the way to go. Also, what we do to avoid waste here at Franklin McKinley, as I stated earlier, we do have 2 charter schools. There can be times where the charter schools are in session and we're not in session. So what we do is, if we're out of session and our charter schools are in session, we have a cutoff time where my staff can order food. So prior to their 1 week off or a couple of weeks off, we have a cutoff time. Number one, that saves on food cost, and them ordering anything that that may not, the kids may not eat, or whatever the case may be. So what we do with the food that is on hand when the charter schools are in school and we're out of school, we will use the leftover food, the food that is on hand on their inventory. We will use that up for our charter schools. Again, our menus are subject to change. So the menu can change. We make sure that that's on the menu, on all of our menus, stating that the menu is subject to change. So in a case like this, we would it would apply for the charter schools, or even if it's our summer school program that we're running, we run every year. We just use the food that we have on hand, and we'll transfer that over to the schools that are running the programs. And then that keeps our costs down on food. And there's no waste or anything like that. We also work with Second Harvest in the past, and donated food in the past. However, again, with us doing the shared tables, with us controlling the food cost to ensure that we don't have an excess amount of food on hand, this again has worked for Franklin McKinley School District. I want to thank you for your time. Again, my name is Alane Webb. I am the food service manager here at Franklin McKinley School District. And again, if you need any help, I am here to support you in any kind of way that I can help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alane, for sharing all of those strategies. I hope you all were able to pick up a couple of tips there. There's a wealth of knowledge there. Alane also mentioned to us on our call with her that the custodial staff are happier, and that their workers' comp claims have actually gone down since they implemented share tables, because staff are hauling so much less waste after each meal service. So wanted to pass that along as well. So I'm now going to run through some general food waste prevention strategies. Again, many of these you may already be using, but hopefully there'll be a few new ones to take away. So a few things to consider when it comes to food waste reduction in menu design. Planning menus to reuse surplus items as much as possible is a great strategy. For example, you might have chicken sandwiches one day and then chicken salad the next. Cycle menus, Alane mentioned she uses a 2-week cycle menu, allow you to better forecast demand based on the popularity of each item and your production records. And our next speaker will also speak more to that. Surveying students and using samples to test new or proposed menu items is a good way to predict and better understand the popularity of certain menu items. And then making sure that wherever possible, you are reserving food both from the kitchen and then also those allowable items from share tables. This is a good one to ensure that your culinary team and kitchen staff are on board with to ensure that this strategy works well. You're all aware, and most of you are already implementing offer versus serve. I think we can go to the next slide. Thank you, Heba. Offer versus serve, which of course is a great food waste reduction tool by allowing students to choose the food they want, and in some cases, depending on your setup, maybe the portion sizes they want. It's important to use signage and education to encourage students to select sensible portions if that's possible in your system. And also reminding them which items they can go back to get seconds of. That can further help reduce waste. And then ensuring that everyone understands the system, both students and staff, can help to ensure that the meal line moves more smoothly, allowing students to make the most of their meal time. And that brings us to timing. Many studies have shown that having enough time to eat is a major factor in the amount that students eat, and therefore the amount of food that's ultimately wasted. Of course, there's a number of reasons why this might be hard to implement at your own districts, but here are a few examples of strategies recommended by the USDA and other agencies. So longer seated lunchtime is associated particularly with higher consumption of fruits and vegetables. And so health experts recommend at least 20 minutes of seated lunchtime, so students sitting for that 20 minutes. Offering a grab and go line for students who want to get through the line faster can be another way to kind of speed things up and give them more time to eat. Recess before lunch is considered a best practice by a number of organizations, and studies have shown that it leads to significantly less food waste, and in some cases, over 50% more fruits and vegetables consumed. And then offering lunch later. Research shows that there's less food waste when lunch periods start at 12 p.m. or afterwards compared to 11:30 a.m. or before. Reducing milk waste. So the World Wildlife Study that I mentioned earlier at the start of this webinar found that milk was one of the most commonly wasted items in schools. So a few ways to reduce your milk waste. For those of you using offer versus serve, you can use additional signage to remind students that milk is optional so that they're not taking it out of habit. As we mentioned before, including a cold held section for milk on share tables, so having ice packs, making sure that milk stays cold can help to reduce milk waste. And then a more difficult solution, but one that can have significant potential benefits, is to transition to bulk milk dispensers if that's possible. The World Wildlife Fund again released another report that includes a cost savings estimate calculator, as well as additional details. A lot of detail in there about bulk milk dispensers, and so we'll put that in the chat if anyone's interested in learning more. We do know that at least one school district in the county is using bulk milk dispensers, and they have seen a significant decrease in their milk waste as a result. When it comes to reducing fruit and vegetable waste, a couple of best practices. Whole fruit is more likely to be wasted, and so where you can, offering sliced fruit is a great option. For instance, orange slices, apple quarters, easier and faster for kids to eat. Offering raw vegetables is also associated with less waste. And then using a salad or produce bar allows students to choose the types and portions, obviously still within those meal requirements that they want. And then salad bars also allow for that frequent replenishment of food, ensuring fresh ingredients and reducing spoilage. Involving students, it's really great to get the students involved, especially since you're trying to get them to increase the amount they're eating and to waste less. So bringing them on board is super important. You can do this either directly, as you may already be doing, or through teachers, going through teachers. There's a lot of curriculum and sort of suggested lesson plans out there for food waste reduction. There's taste testing as well, and letting students vote on new menu items. And then, as Alane mentioned, providing opportunities for students to teach each other about the shared tables or how to further reduce food waste. Another option is to involve parent volunteers, for example, through the PTA or through your volunteer lunch monitors. They might be able to help organize or carry out the tasting events or administering student surveys. Or they might help to champion your cause and spread the word. So I'm now pleased to introduce two ladies from Oak Grove Elementary School District. Terri Anaya is the Child Nutrition Services Department Manager, and Charice Gulizia is the Sodexo consultant for Oak Grove School District. And they will tell you about the food waste reduction strategies that they've successfully implemented at their school sites. So I'll hand it over to them.
I'm the manager of the food service department here in Oak Grove School District, and I'd like to introduce you to my partner here.
Hi, I'm Clara Gulizia. I'm the Sodexo consultant here at Oak Grove School District.
We're excited to be on the call and appreciate the time to be able to share a little bit of information with you. Here in Oak Grove, we're a school district with about 8,800 students, and we have 17 school sites. 14 of those sites are elementary, and 3 of them are middle school. And we serve approximately 7,000 meals per day between breakfast and lunch meals. And we are going to share a little bit with you about some of our best practices and strategies that we utilize here in the district to manage waste, knowing how important it is to ensure that we're not contributing to waste in the environment. So, Charice, I think you're going to start off and we'll tag team here.
Sure. So we've been on this reducing our waste journey for some time. Knowing that legislation was coming, but also just wanting to be mindful in our business and do what's right with our resources. After COVID threw us a huge hurdle, we had to take another look at our menu, and knowing that we had some supply chain issues coming back from all that disruption, we ended up reducing our menu from 4 items per day to 2 items per day. And we also made the bold choice to streamline our menu for elementary and middle school and combine it. We have one menu across the district. We do have a diverse district, so it can be difficult sometimes to balance, but we look at our menu regularly and talk to our students regularly, and we try to balance it in that fashion. We've decided to run a 2-week menu cycle so that our menu usually repeats itself within the month and sometimes even carries over into the following month. That 2-week menu cycle allows us to really dial in our ordering and help with supply chain shortages and help. We're lucky here, we have a warehouse, and our warehouse helps, supply all of our school sites. So we're able to utilize those items, and everybody can help each other out if there's a shortage because we're all on the same menu. We've also trained our school sites to do what's called batch cooking. Many of you probably know exactly what that is. We encourage our school sites to cook kind of on demand. So a majority of our elementary schools have students as young as TK or pre-K all the way through 6th grade. That can mean that our ladies are cooking for well over an hour. Sorry, not cooking, serving for well over an hour. So what we do is encourage them to prep their items ahead of time and then look at about how much is being taken as of like 3rd or 4th grade, and then decide if those last few pans of pizza or chicken need to go into the oven. Of course, if they don't need to heat it, it can be recaptured in the fridge or freezer. And then if it is cooked, such as rice or pasta, those things are a little more difficult to batch cook. We have trained them all in proper cooling methods. We also have our school sites monitor their production records daily, and then we have someone here in the office reviewing them as well. We try our best to make sure that everybody is not running out of food, but also we're monitoring training points when we see that somebody has a huge excess. We talk with them about how did you cool it down, how did you recapture it, how did you reuse it, so that we can make sure that each day we're doing our very best to make what's needed and to save what doesn't need to be wasted. We also utilize something called offer versus serve, which is USDA's option of us letting students pick and choose the different components that they want on their tray. We all know that students will, it's better if they have choice over what's on their tray. There's more of a chance that they're going to consume the food, and that also reduces waste. So if we have a menu item on for that day and we have multiple fruits and vegetables, we'll have trays with different fruits and vegetables on it. So a student doesn't necessarily need to choose a burrito bowl with carrots. They could choose a burrito bowl with an applesauce cup if that's their choice. And they can talk to their service staff and customize what they want.
Part of our best practice, obviously, is really making sure that we have a menu planning that is insightful and very strategic. And part of that is that we're reusing specific items, menu items. For example, if we have a pasta dish that we are serving on a particular day, and we have leftovers, we're pulling those down and saving that pasta and possibly making, let's say, a pasta salad the next day. So when we're doing menu planning, we're really thinking about that strategically. If any items are left over, how are we using those on a different menu item so that those items aren't going to waste? Another example would be a chicken patty, right? If we've got leftovers, so we're pulling those down, we're chopping those up, or maybe repurposing those in a menu item the next day, for example, a chicken wrap. So really strategically planning what that menu is going to look like. And obviously part of that safety piece and repurposing it, those menu items, is making sure that we've got temperature integrity in place, right? That's super, super critical. So all of those tools that are available for our staff and the training needs to be in place to make sure that they're educated in those processes and procedures. Other things I could say actually is fruits and vegetables. So let's say, for example, we've got raisin boxes and we've got applesauce cups and juice boxes. All of those things that we are serving our kids are things that are reusable as well, shelf stable, aren't going in the garbage can. And if we're using canned good items, canned fruit or vegetables, we're cupping those and we're putting lids on them so that when we're serving that and those kids aren't taking those items, we're saving that and putting them away in the refrigerator and reusing them the next day for our menu planning. So it really is, what can we do to ensure the integrity of our product, not wasting it, and menuing it specifically so that we manage that control.
Another change that we made in the last couple of years is we switched from frozen juice cartons to shelf-stable juice cartons, as Terri mentioned. And we also have a steady supply always, for backup reasons, of shelf-stable milk. And that's really helped us as we plan for school closures. So in the schools business, we have many school closures, week-long breaks, as well as extended weekends. So we encourage our staff to really monitor how much fresh perishable food they're bringing in prior to those breaks. And the expectation and the way that the menu is written is so that they will run out of their fresh milk and their fresh produce by that last day of service prior to the break. And they'll supplement with shelf-stable milk if necessary, and also the canned fruits and vegetables that Terri mentioned. And the same is true when we reopen after a break. We're utilizing those items while they wait for their fresh produce truck to arrive. We also utilize something called Chef's Choice Days. So as we near a school closure, or especially near the end of the school year, and it's going to be weeks or months before a school reopens, we allow them several different days within the menu that they can go through their own inventory, dry, frozen, refrigerated, and they can run by us what they plan to menu. We can monitor whether or not it meets the USDA requirements, and then give that site permission to use those items and use everything up so that nothing goes to waste at the end of the school year.
Another strategy that we really are encouraging is the use of share tables. Obviously, kids take certain items, they may not want to eat it. For compliance purposes, they need to take particular things, but they don't want to eat it. Rather than going, being disposed or going in the garbage or in the green bin, what have you, we've got a share table that they're putting those items there. And any other child that has, 1 second or wants to come by and have access to it has additional items to choose from. Now, of course, with that, obviously partnering with the health department to make sure that we've got processes in place that are ensuring the integrity and the safety of those food items, right? So if that's something that you're considering, we need to make sure that you're handling that in a process that's safe for all involved. But that's definitely a strategy and a process that we're working on.
And as we look at our menu, it's tough to limit yourself to just 2 menu items per day, whether that's lunch and breakfast. But one of the ways that we've decided to do it here is we're making it customer centric. We talk to our students all the time. And so as we look forward to launching new items, or we have new ideas, we go out to different school sites and we do tastings. So we're exposing the kids to an item before it actually hits the menu. That way they're not scared when they see it the first time saying, what's that? They've tasted it, they know it's good. We also expect that we're not going to put things on the menu that don't have a wonderful approval rating. So that's something we've done as well. We've utilized digital surveys and pulse points, and allowed our students also to vote on future menu items. We've gone through and seen what we can offer them, and then they say, this is what we would like to see. And so we build our menu that way, and it seems to have garnered quite a bit of satisfaction.
I would be remiss in saying, not saying this, so I want to bring it up as a last piece, that if there are items at a particular school site that maybe there's a lot of leftovers and they need to be able to reuse those, we do ask that they contact us and let us know what's happening in that kitchen so that we can possibly put those on the menu the next day as a third item if necessary. And it's important that we know that because we manage what we call a NutriSlice system, that we document all the nutritional values, and our menu is posted here for families and for all the district nurses in our district here in Oak Grove to manage and monitor those for the students that meet some of those additional requirements to manage their food intake. So it's, there's a lot involved in this. We're passionate and excited about it. We appreciate being on the call, and obviously we're here as a resource. If you have questions, anything that we might be able to help or, offer, we're here. Let us know. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Terri and Charice. That was a terrific presentation with so many tips. So in this last segment of the webinar, I'm going to focus on compliance with SB 1383 edible food recovery requirements, as well as how to go about setting up a food recovery or donation program if you do have surplus food that would otherwise go to waste. So a brief overview of 1383, also known as California's short-lived climate pollutant reduction strategy. SB 1383 aims to reduce statewide greenhouse gas emissions, primarily methane, by reducing the amount of organic waste that ends up in California landfills. So the law sets the following goals. The first two being reduction of organic material in the landfill, and then the last one having to do with recovering 20% of currently disposed edible food for human consumption by 2025. So again, those are statewide goals. And so what that means for local education agencies. Under the law, local education agencies in Santa Clara County are required to submit a food recovery report annually. That starts in 2025, covering the previous calendar year, so covering this 2024 calendar year. And then they're required to ensure that all food facilities within their district are recovering, in the legal language, the maximum amount of edible surplus food, and keeping the relevant records on site, which we'll go through in a moment. The one thing to note, there is no minimum donation requirement under the law. You are only required to donate surplus food that would otherwise go to waste. We do recommend reducing the amount of surplus food as much as possible, using all of the prevention measures we've just discussed. But if you do have surplus food that would otherwise go to waste, you're required to recover and donate it, of course, always adhering to food safety requirements in CalCode. We send some information via mail. However, the program shares more detailed resources and compliance information via email. So if you need to update the email that we have on file for your agency or district, please reach out to us, and we'll put our email in the chat at the end. I wanted to share just briefly that the CDE and the USDA are on board with school food donations. And this CDE bulletin outlines the guidance for donation of food from child nutrition programs. It also confirms that schools are protected from liability under the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. And the other thing it highlights that I wanted to pull out is that schools are required to donate food to a 501c3 organization. So how to go about setting up your food recovery program. First is finding a food recovery organization that can accept the types and amounts of surplus food that you have to donate. Under the right circumstances, you may be able to work with a 501c3 organization that is already operating at your site to redistribute surplus food on site. But they would need to hold the relevant permits, and it's important to talk to your environmental health department before moving forward with that. It's important to label donations with the type of food and the date that food is prepared or stored. This is, particularly important for the bulk food that you can see in the picture there. Designating space in your freezer or fridge for donations is a good best practice. Ideally labeling this to avoid mixing it up with other food. Using donation records to further reduce your surplus. This goes back to everything we were talking about. Donation records are a great way to see what items you regularly have in surplus. And then, of course, engaging your team. Like with prevention, food recovery really is a team effort and works best when everyone is engaged, aware, and involved. A quick funding note, the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program will likely have funds next year dedicated, or next fiscal year, dedicated to purchasing supplies for safe food recovery on school campuses. So potentially ice packs for share tables and other items. More to come on that a little later. Of course, you must always comply with CAL code, whether food is being served to students or donated. When determining what foods can be donated and how to donate safely, first ensuring that your donation protocols are in line with all local environmental health practices is really important. Again, we're working to put together that guide with DEH that should highlight those for you, and hope to share that soon. And then keep in mind that date labels on food are most often quality and not safety labels. And so many items can be donated on or even a little after the best by date. You should talk to your food recovery organization for their specific policies regarding date labels. And then we wanted to show you our food recovery matching tool really briefly. So this is our website. And if you're on our website and scroll down to step number 3, that will take you, you'll get a link to a list of food recovery organizations, which takes you to our matching tool. This hosts a list of organizations that are operating in the county and looking for new food donation partnerships. You can use this list. I highly encourage filtering, using our filter options there. So you can filter by the types of food accepted, which in your case might be prepared foods. And you can see a filtered list of organizations that accept prepared foods that you can filter by a number of other options, including filtering by the types of businesses and organizations these organizations work with. So you could select schools there, which would give you a list of organizations that may work with schools specifically. And so that's a good place to start, to identify a few organizations that you could potentially work with and then reach out to them from there. And then I'm going to move on to record keeping requirements. So again, for local education agencies, there are some record keeping requirements if you have a food recovery program set up. So if you do, you're required to keep the following records on site. They can be physical or online, as long as they're available on site. So that's a copy of a contract or written agreement with any food recovery organization you're working with, the organization's name, address, and contact information, the types of food that you've agreed will be donated, frequency or schedule of donations. So this could be as needed or 3 times a week, for example. The quantity in pounds of food donated per month. So all those records you're required to keep on site, and we will review during inspections. You should also be prepared to discuss your food waste prevention strategies in inspections and then also in annual reporting. This is particularly important if you're donating only small amounts of food, or if you don't have a food recovery program set up. You should be prepared to discuss the prevention strategies you're using to really reduce your food surplus food. And then, as I mentioned before, you're required to submit a food recovery report annually starting next year. That report will cover this current calendar year, and so make sure you're keeping records so that you're ready to submit that report next year. We'll send reminders via email and mail for that report. So that's it. A lot of information. Sorry if I rushed a little bit. Thank you all so much for joining us. We've got a few minutes to answer some questions. Feel free to throw your questions in the Q&A if you haven't already. And like I mentioned, any strategies that we didn't mention that you're using, we'd love to hear from you in the chat, and we can share those out. We will send this recording out in the next couple of weeks, so please share this with your staff, colleagues, other schools as helpful. A quick reminder that that survey will pop up once the webinar is over, and we would really appreciate you taking just a couple of minutes to share your feedback. It really does help us. Heba has put a number of the links to resources we discussed in the chat. Those will also be included when we send out the recording to the webinar, so don't worry if you aren't able to get them all now. And then if you have questions for our panelists, also feel free to throw those in the chat. If we have a minute and they're willing to join, we might be able to bring them up here as well. So I'm going to jump in and answer A few questions that came in. One question is if we can't find free food recovery organizations, how do we pay for this? I want to first acknowledge that we understand this is difficult. This is an unfunded mandate for everyone involved, food recovery organizations included. And so we understand that some of them may need to charge to cover their costs of food recovery. Of course, we can't answer specifically how any individual school district will pay for this, as we don't fully understand your individual budgets. One thing I will say is that some of the measures we've talked about can have potential cost savings. So a reduction in organic waste can potentially lead to savings in hauling costs, which of course doesn't necessarily mean that you will directly recoup those costs, but potential cost savings there. The other thing I'll mention is we do recommend aggregating or extending the shelf life of donations wherever possible through freezing, for example, so that you don't need as many pickups. And then lastly, we are collecting information about what resources are needed at schools, fridges and freezers, for example, so that we can advocate on behalf of schools for the resources that are needed. So please do share that with us, and we will do our best to advocate to find resources for those needs. And then we had another question related to required signage for the health department. We will put, well, first I'll say, like I mentioned, we are working with the health department to try to put together a guide on share tables and school food donations. So we're hoping to share that with you all soon. That should outline some of these things. And then also we can put contact information for environmental health into the chat. And if you have any food safety specific questions, we'd recommend reaching out to them as they are the food safety experts. Let me see then if there are any other questions here. Similarly, a question about how we can safely recover items from the share table to put back into stock, such as fruit and vegetable wash, sanitizing milk cartons. Again, I'd recommend reaching out to your environmental health specifically for their requirements around that. Okay, since we don't have any questions and we're getting close to the top of the hour, I want to say a big thank you again to Alane, Charice, and Terri for sharing your expertise and insights. I would have loved to pull you up here at the end, but we're close on time. But if anyone does have questions, additional questions for us or for our speakers, please you can reach us at the email address there. And we can certainly pass along questions to the speakers as well. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you all again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.